Jonathan Nicoletti with Acolyte Applications.
Awesome. So you just finished attending Pause. Tell me about your experience.
Um, yeah, in a nutshell, I guess where I'll take my answer is Pause. I feel like describes itself in its title, and and it also allows for an amount of play and like adventure that you wouldn't get maybe at a normal conference. And the example that I have for that is, with the pause, sure that I was going to learn some new software, and I certainly did. But the main thing that I took away that I did learn was how to ride a motorized unicycle, and
That's awesome.
that's something that I feel like I'm not going to get that experience anywhere else other than like a pause type event, and what you're fostering at these events. And so, shout out to Taylor Sharp for letting myself and my colleague Reed ride one of his motorized unicycles like the whole
That's
week.
awesome. That's very cool. Yeah, I remember seeing you all on those. I got egged on to get on them, and I quietly said no, thank you.
Yeah, I was trying to recruit as many
I
people as
know.
possible, including yourself, onto it, but there's good engagement. Plenty of people give it a shot, and some people learn quicker than others. Let's put it that
That's
way.
awesome. Very cool. Now, you presented a session at Pause. Now, did you go into Pause expecting to present?
No, I didn't. I think that's the other part that's really exciting about session or conference like Pause is that it feels really organic and natural, and that you give the space for that to occur. Like basically, there's just blankets of open time for activity or uh, a pop-up session. And so, yeah, I was able to give a session on the new Claris Studio features and just how some of the data management occurs between, FileMaker or Claris Pro, and then, moving all those things over to Claris Studio.
Very cool. Now, I was walking by when that session was happening, and it seemed like you had some pretty good company in that session. Who'd you have near you?
Yeah. I certainly had plenty of help. I mean, the whole Claire's team pretty much came around me to do the most of the Q&A. As you can imagine, people had plenty of questions, so that made it simple on me, kind of relieve the burden. But I had Louis next to me and Clay, and and so having those guys being able to kind of go back and forth from what's the FileMaker side of things, what's the studio side of things look like, and how are those interacting, and even ran into a bug during the presentation that
Hmm,
it was handy to have the engineers right next to you so that you could say, hey, what's that bug? Didn't make any
yeah,
sense to me, but so.
that's fantastic. Now, had you presented before at an event like this?
No, so that was also a huge a huge perk. So for that to be my first, FileMaker or Claris session ever to present, really was a blessing to have, all those guys, Robert as well. I didn't mention just there, and Andy Lacates, chiming in to ask questions and kind of steer the conversation, as well as, you know, just touch on some of the new tech, and talk with the community to hear really what their needs are,
Hmm.
and that was one of the goals, was to hear who's using it, how is it going for them, and what's missing, what do we need in order to make this platform continue to be as successful as it's been, with just one part of it being FileMaker, and now there's three parts of it, and what is that going to look like going forward?
Pause is near and dear to my heart, not just because I get to be just because I get to lead at this, these few last rounds, but Pause was the first place where I presented as well in this community, and so it's kind of a special place to me because I'm not sure I would have felt this comfortable in another space, but everyone was so welcoming and kind and supportive when I was presenting. Did you get a similar feel when you were at the front of the
Oh,
table?
yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that I think, like, if you're newer to the community, or trying to get your foot in the door and have conversations with people. It's great for just how welcoming it is, and I think that's how it is overall with the community, even at bigger sessions. But with Pause in particular, that spontaneous nature that I mentioned previously, it kind of takes the pressure off,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't necessarily have to plan as much. Of course, planning would really help, like, sharpen or take off the rough edges of a presentation. But for me, it relieves some of the anxiety that comes with prep work that usually happens to me, whether that's like getting ready for certification test or doing any sort of public speaking or presentation. I just like get so worked up about how's it going to go or whatever, and it takes me about 5 minutes into any presentation to like get my bearings. And since this was spontaneous, it was just kind of like we're moving and we're going, and so you
Yeah.
don't really have time to get caught up in some of those emotions, or at least I didn't. And then on afterward, plenty of feedback. Huge thanks to everybody who attended, and a special thanks to those who took the time to write a card about their experience, and just their enjoyment of it. So I hope to connect with a few of you afterwards, and just continue the conversation.
That's awesome. Oh, I love that. I love that. So it sounds like you got bus notes that mentioned your session. Do you want to talk
Yes.
about bus notes a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So bus notes, I'm sure maybe there's going to be some overview of these, but they're cards that um, everyone's able to write to other attendees, and then the idea is you take them on your way home, and read them while you're traveling back, and it's mainly just experiences and connections that you might have had with other people that you're sharing, or any sort of encouragement that you can give to one another. So yeah, it was we drove. It was about a 10-hour drive for us, a little over 10 hours, and so they really felt like bus notes to us. We drove a car, so maybe more like gas station car notes, but um, we were able to stop a few times and read a couple, and then keep going and read a couple. So that was a really fun experience that kind of felt like it made the drive for us more a part of the whole event,
Hmm.
which was good. It wasn't just like a on the way from or on the way to situation.
Yeah. I was talking to, I think it was John Howell, and he said that he did it last year and he did it again this year, where his whole car, so camp gives you lunch to go, right? So you grab your lunch, they drive off to a park, they stop at the top of this hike, and everyone gets to eat their lunch and read their bus notes by themselves, but kind of together. And he said it's such a
Okay.
cool, you can feel people's excitement and emotion coming from those notes, right? So it's like a way to taper back into reality.
Oh
It's pretty cool.
yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
We'll have to do that next time. Like,
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
find a good spot to. There's plenty of spots between Indiana is where we're located, between Indiana and the event center. So we
Cool.
should be able to find one.
Yeah,
But
I love it. Now, I got to take a walk with you to the waterfall, which was awesome, and we got to catch up a little bit. Um, what other, which I loved. It was so great to be able to chat with you.
yeah, likewise.
Again, the day to day gets kind of busy and crazy, and we don't get to do that very often, right? So, I'm glad we got to do that. Are there conversations you had or sessions that you attended that stuck out to you?
Um, yeah, there. I mean, um, hmm. Yes, of course. I I kind of had like a packaged answer for this that I guess I'll just. It was for a different question, but I'll use it, and really it's just about connection in general.
Hmm.
The focus at Pause, I feel like it can certainly be about the sessions, but it's also about those touch points that you have with other people, and those connections you're able to make. And um, uh, as everyone knows, the last few years have been remote, and even the FileMaker conferences have been remote because of just the way the world has went. And so to have a time to get together is refreshing, to actually be physically in the same space. So it's almost like that connection of just filling up the same room, rather than like what the content was. It was just a matter of you know, being matter and being in the same physical area. Um, but one of those connections that stood out, of course, was with my coworker Reed Lyons. We were able to. We've been remote most of our time together, and so to be able to spend like a whole week just about like just one on one to build
Mhm.
that connection has been awesome. So we're not in Zoom sessions just chatting from different states or whatever. We're actually like in a car for 10 hours, able to talk about life and how things are going, how developing is going, what we enjoy about parts of our work and where we would like to take that. So um, not session specific, but yeah, connection specific, I guess. So
That's cool.
and if I can monologue a little bit longer, one of the things that I do really appreciate about the sessions too is that almost that they're more than sessions and they're essentially conversations. So at a standard conference, it's kind of top down and presentation, uh, presenter to audience members, and it's just kind of one direction. But at Pause, I feel like there's a lot of space for it to be bi-directional, and it is more of like a conversation where it's like, "Hey, this is what I'm trying. What do you think works?" And the ergonomics session was a really good example of everybody just was able to chime in and say, "Hey, this works for me," or "Hey, I have this uh, this technology that I use that helps me stay ergonomic, or I have this philosophy that I use, or even I have this medical condition that doesn't let me, take advantage of some of your techniques, and so this is what I do instead." And to, have those different perspectives and viewpoints like come out in the middle of a session rather than afterwards is like really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's actually, I remember last year, um, Maka and Karnasao hadn't attended Pause before, and she was kind of asking how it worked, and she had a presentation, and it was so awesome to see her sitting on the main stage, like sitting with like cross-legged on the floor next to her laptop, and everyone kind of sitting around her in a circle. It was so casual, and it totally embodied what Pause is about, right? It's not, like you said, it's not top down. It's not
Yeah,
talking to people. It should be a conversation, and so much of that was obvious this year too. People in Adirondack chairs in a half circle, or people by the lake, or people at a pavilion, or wherever. But it's almost like there was more space for people to just hang out and have conversations, even if it was a true session.
yeah. Well, it helped that it didn't rain the whole time, right?
Yeah.
So people were willing to sit outside.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Oh, it was so great to use the amphitheater this year. We didn't get to use it last year because it rained so much.
oh,
And
okay.
and it was such a, yeah, my perspective was obviously different since I was on stage talking to people at that. So that was a little bit slightly more one-sided. But it was this just cool seeing everyone sitting on these stone steps hanging out. So that's one of my favorite memories. As much as it was, single direction, it was cool to see everyone just united on these steps.
Yeah, yeah, and it was cool to be able to see everyone like
Yeah.
at the 2,000 people at the main keynote speaker sessions for the main ones. Like you can't really, at least my eyes don't allow me to see everyone
Yeah.
in that room. But at Pause, with it being a little bit smaller, a little bit more intimate, to be able to like actually look around and you're like, hey, there's so and so, and there's the other person,
Yeah.
all right next to each other.
Yeah.
So maybe even sitting next to you. So
Right. And on top of it, you've got everybody from all different levels, right? You've got the people who've been around for a long time, you've got people who work at Claris, you've got everybody all at the same level, right? And I think that's such a key thing about Pause. Sorry, dog and toy.
oh, that's all right. I
um,
have a cat and a toy somewhere
do
too,
you?
and it's about his time as well. So he kind of sneaks up
Oh, funny.
around this hour and just is carrying it in his mouth screaming. So
All right, we'll have
if that happens, I'll give you. I mean, I probably won't have to give you a heads
well,
up.
yeah, we'll just have parallel situations happening.
Yeah.
All right. So what are we've already announced that we're doing Pause next year at the same venue. Do you think you'll be? Are you planning to go? I know things can change, but are you planning to go?
Yeah, I don't know. So I mean, there is also kind of waiting to hear what Claris official does too, of if they're going to bring back an in-person conference. So at this point, I'm not sure. I would love to come back for sure after the first experience. It's a little bit earlier in the year too, so a couple weeks earlier, so it might be a little warmer. So that's obviously attractive as well. Um, but yeah, so I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
Um,
Now let's.
yeah,
So we do expect warmer weather, and I don't know about the rain though, so I can't promise
yeah,
much.
it's October, so you can only
Exactly. Yeah.
hold out and find out.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you will attend. It would be great to have you again. Do you have advice for people who maybe haven't attended a pause before and might consider attending next year?
I did. I did like 2 days ago. Uh,
It's a long time ago.
yeah, I know, and I didn't write it down because um uh yeah, I suppose the advice I would have would be, don't be afraid to say hi and ask to share a meal or to share a moment with someone. I know that that can be challenging for those who are introverted, and it's kind of hard to, if it's just not your personality, it's hard to say hi to people you don't know or you haven't met yet. Um, but I think it's an environment that really fosters conversations, and whether that's a session that's a conversation, or it's you're just walking in between events or activities and you bump into somebody and that rolls into a full conversation. um, then yeah, that's what I'd say. Don't be afraid to do that, and don't be afraid to try something new. And so whether that's code, um, trying like a new technology like Claire Studio, uh, or if it's trying like a motorized unicycle for the first time.
There you go.
I can't promise those will be there every year, but I think as long as Taylor Sharp's there,
Yeah,
you'll have at least one.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely. Very cool. All right. Any last things you want to say about pause or your experience?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for taking the time for this. I am so excited you were there this year. It was great to get to chat with you, and it was awesome to see the turnout on your spontaneous Clara Studio session. I think I heard lots of good stuff about it afterwards. So thank you for being willing to be a part of this kind of crazy event, crazy cool event, and for playing such an important part in it.
Well, yeah, and thanks to you and Chrissy, and anyone else on the Proof Guys team for organizing it. Just fo fostering a space for people to have conversations like we did during that week is a challenge in and of itself, and it's not just like getting a venue and making the space, but also like creating a culture
Mm.
and an attitude that an event will have. And I think you all did a really good job of crafting what kind of experience you wanted to craft. And so a big thank you from us for giving us the space to kind of use it as, a work retreat for our team, but also to overlap with a lot of other conversations that other shops are having, and what the conversations Claris is having as well. So
Oh, that means a lot to me. Thank you. I'm glad it was. I'm glad it worked out the way it did. It was really a fun event. All right.
likewise.
Thanks again. All right. We'll talk soon.